Welcome to Invercargill in New Zealand's deep south, home of cycling Southland and a region rich in scenery and character. For the past 59 years, Invercargill has opened its doors to a small army of elite cycling teams who descend on the region for one of the biggest and toughest races on the New Zealand cycling calendar. Across 7 stages and 900 kilometres, the cyclists will face everything the roads, terrain and weather of Southland can throw at them. At the end of the week, the best will take home the titles and the jerseys money can't buy. This is the 2015 SBS Bank Tour of Southland. The 2014 SBS Bank Tour of Southland will be remembered for the fantastic weather and some classic stages. The traditional tour weather was nowhere to be seen for much of the week, which made for some very open racing. The yellow jersey would change hands 3 times before it stuck with Mitchell Lovelock-Fay of the Avanti racing team on stage 4 up to Coronet Peak. Despite being pushed hard by the other teams, Avanti held on to the yellow through to the conclusion in Invercargill's Queen's Park, by which time they'd secured second place for Joe Cooper along with the overall team's general classification. In 2014, the Sprint Ace jersey went to local Invercargill rider Matthew Zenovich. He's back this year with a new team, Champion System Team Dallas. Otago-based Team Cromwell made a welcome debut in 2014, and British rider Tom Stewart earned them the honours with the King of the Mountain jersey. The team returns in 2015 with a largely new lineup, so the KOM will be going to a new face. In 2015, the Avanti boys are back in, looking to defend the yellow jersey and the team's general classification title.
We came into the tour last year with 3 guys that could probably potentially do well or win the tour. You know, after 180 Ks and a big effort up Coronet Peak, Mitch came to the top, and from there on, we were all ready to help support and win the tour. So, you know, Tour of Southland throws a lot of challenges at you. Guys like Ben Hill, Michael Talker, they didn't make the race easy for us at all last year.
Oh, I think it played out pretty perfectly for me, to be honest. We got to the bottom of the climbs and I just felt really good on the day, and I was able to ride away on my own and get enough time to be in the yellow and defend for the rest of the tour.
The team's good. I think we've had a good season, but we want to finish this on a good note. I think the weather's going to play a major role this year. If you look at the weather reports, the last couple of years it's been really good. So it's going to be a real battle, I think. It's not going to be an obvious outcome, I don't think.
Yeah, I think the whole dynamic of the race this year is going to be completely different and a lot colder, so there'll be a lot of riders from Australia in particular that aren't used to that, and they might struggle towards the end of the race with not eating or drinking enough and not being warm enough throughout the whole day.
All of the 14 assembled teams have the ability to contest a category, but if anyone can topple Avanti in the general classification, it will be the boys in red from Kia Motors Ascot Park. This team has some serious power, with New Zealand track world champions, the 2012 Tour of Southland winner Mike Northey, and 2 experienced Americans, Travis McCabe and Eric Marcotte.
I live in the desert in Phoenix, Scottsdale, and so the temperature change has been pretty big for me. So that's going to be pretty tough. The cold, wet stuff is not my favorite type of racing, but that's what makes races, right? And it can change everything in a moment. So yeah, I feel like it's going to be a pretty tough week. Hopefully we get a few good days out there, though.
I've got a lot of horsepower in the team, and it's not just it's not a team with one super individual. It's when the conditions are bad like this, you need a whole team to be good, to make the most of the conditions, and I'd say that's what we've got an advantage of.
900 kilometres of racing got underway with the traditional teams time trial around Invercargill's Queen's Park. With new lineups and new teams across the board, much would be read into the outcome of this prologue. As the 14 teams made their way around the 4.2 kilometre circuit, the times began to trickle through. The first team to go under 5 minutes would be Powernet with 4 minutes 59. They were followed by the Tour's potential heavy hitters of Kia Motors Ascot Park and Avanti Racing. With both teams counting some world-class time trialists amongst their ranks, there was never going to be much in it. The boys in red crossed the line in a time of 4 minutes 56, but it wasn't enough to hold off the Avanti racing team, who closed out the prologue in 4 minutes 51, with Joe Cooper taking the honours. So it's the Avanti racing team and Joe Cooper lining up in yellow as the tour heads into day 2 and the first stage proper.
The first stage of this year's tour is the longest in duration and is also the opportunity for teams to come out and stamp their mark right from the get-go of this year's tour. A lot of nerves and excitement out there, and the last 30 kilometres always opens up with a great tailwind and a fast bunch gallop into Lumsden.
Depending on the weather conditions and the motivation from the top squads, it could get very windy on the way to Mossburn, and it could provide an opportunity for the race to blow apart early on.
Here we have 84 riders from 8 nations in this year's SBS Bank Tour of Southland making their way through the streets of Invercargill in this neutral section, Doug. There'll be a lot of nerves and excitement on day 1.
Yes, and that's just from the schools, Julian. The riders love the support from the schools. You can see there Marty Lowry from the police does a great job organising all that. This is the good bit of the Tour of Southland. The racing's going to start very shortly, and it's game on from this point.
And in typical fashion, right from the get-go, will be the early sprints in the Tour, which it's well known for. So some riders will be making the decisions early on whether they're going to hide away in the bunch or do as we see here, as a number of them now try and set themselves up for some early points in the Harcourt Sprint Ace.
The jockeying for position, Julian, at the start of this kind of stage is pretty cruel, and you've got to be on your game. You can actually tip a wheel. So there's a lot of toing and froing. You can see here the L&M group team, the Creation Science guys. It might be the Cooper boys, the Chapman boys, sorry. You've got to be careful because it's very windy and there's a lot of guys going for preems, and you've just got to stay safe.
And it is the younger of the two brothers, Joe Chapman, based out of Dunedin, that took out the first of those preems there to get himself onto the point score there for the Harcourt Sprint Ace. And now we can see he's been joined by Roman Van Uden as they make their way through into Wallerstown for another one of the sprints. He's going to take that nice and casually, pick up a few more points, and Olympian Mark Ryan also securing 3rd place.
Yes, the danger man here, you can see the peloton in the distance. The danger man here, these guys are going to have a bit of a yarn to each other, but Mark Ryan, gosh, this guy's got some horsepower, Julian. World champion teams pursuit rider. He's one guy with the firepower to blow this thing to bits.
We often talk about experience in a tour, and those 3 men certainly carry a lot of that. So it'll be interesting if we look back to the peloton, what sort of reaction we're going to get from them. At this point in time, they're being stretched out a little bit here as 2 other riders now make their way across to join with them here. And it's one of the Chester's racing riders here, Frank Sutton, one of the new teams on board, who's decided he sees this as a serious threat and will join them for early on in the day.
Isn't it great to see young guys having a crack? You can see the peloton in the distance. They'll be having a brief look over their shoulders from time to time. This is no man's land, Julian. You either commit and get into it, or you sit there, sit on the back of the brake and bide your time. But from what I can see here, these guys are going to have a crack.
Well, Nick Miller there, the man in the Barry Stewart's Builders colours there. The orange colours, they were very prominent over the last couple of years. So he's been given the nod by the team to get themselves up there. And you can see Ryan, the team's pursuiter, on the front there, starting to set the pace as they decide that maybe this is a chance, an opportunity to try and break away.
Joe Chapman's ridden this race quite a few times. He's a previous King of the Mountains jersey wearer. He's got some experience. Mark Ryan, all the experience in the world. You can see back in the peloton here, there's a bit of jockeying going on. Not a lot of wind at this stage, Julian, blowing the whole thing to bits yet. No one's really put the hammer down to try and chase. If these guys can establish themselves, this could be a good move.
Let's not forget, of course, 160 kilometres, pretty much 100 mile for these riders, the longest stage in this year's tour. So there'll be a lot of decisions being made here. It is day 1, after all, of whether or not we do the chase or traditionally leave it towards the last 30 to 40 kilometres as we've seen in this stage before.
Let's not forget, Julian, after today there's still another 5 days racing. So committing yourself to a move like this, in an early stage of a race like the SBS Tour of Southland, you really do commit yourself to some energy.
So one of the other classifications in this year's tour, of course, is the Jesco Hydraulics King of the Mountains, and Frank Sutton is the man there on the front now trying to secure himself some points from Nick Miller.
Yeah, the preems along the road and the hill climbs are absolutely vital, and if you're going for those classifications right from the get-go, as you can see here, the young boy Sutton trying to get as many of those points up his sleeve as you can, because sometimes you have a day or two where you may not collect as many points. If you're in a break, man, you make the most of it.
So as we head back to the chasing peloton, and no surprise to see that it is Team Avanti, the Avanti racing team. It's got a mixture of Australian and Kiwi riders involved, and it's Fraser Goff, as often is the case, has been set the task of leading the peloton there and trying to keep things under control. But coming through with a time check of 7 minutes, it's a decent gap, Doug.
Yeah, 7 minutes won't be panicking these guys given the conditions, and you can see here Fraser Goff, very cool, very relaxed, having something to eat. He's making sure that he's not driving it along too quickly. The peloton isn't split out too far behind him. What a phenomenal athlete this lad. Very, very tall for a cyclist, very big fella, but man, can he put some power out.
Yeah, let's not forget, of course, he's a pretty good man when it comes against racing against the clock as a national champion, both in the elite and under 23 categories. So he's keeping the pace fairly high here for the field, but making sure that his teammates are well protected along the way, including the pink jersey there of Goff.
And you can see Mitchell, Lovelock Fay tucked in there in about fourth. He's obviously thinking about the race later on, but these races are made up of moments, Julian. You've got to live in the moment, make the most of them, and at the minute these guys have been set a chase, and it is a considerable one.
We saw a shot there of Tom Davison, of course the former Commonwealth Games triathlete, set in the pace there with his team off the front as they make their way down here towards Ojai, and the kids out once again in support. But it's still a decent sort of a gap here as the field starts to break up on another one of the hills out of nightcaps.
You can see some straggling groups starting to appear. This is what is going to happen today. That wind just is relentless, it's gusting, and it takes its toll, Julian. After a while, you start slipping off the wheels, you're not coming through for your turns, you're not getting the shelter. Gosh, you can use some energy up quickly.
So an interesting move here by Team Skoda this time with Nick Bain, rider 112, has decided I've had enough and I'm going to have a bit of a crack off the front and see if I can cross there, because of course he's one of those men that are vying for that pink jersey. That is of course for the under 23 category, and you can see him now having to contend with that wind all by himself. It's a big ask to try and get across the gap.
Yeah, it really is, and of course a lot of these guys haven't raced in conditions such as this. The terrain of this race is not a massive challenge in terms of an international bike race, but the conditions are very unique. You can see the time gap there, Julian, 2 minutes 30, and then another group back to 4. So the conditions are something that a lot of these riders have never encountered.
You're absolutely right. That, of course, the profile today doesn't really give away just how challenging this circuit particularly can be, but it is those strong winds they have continued to pick up throughout this particular stage here. Cross headwinds for the majority of the day, and hence why we see a rider number 54 now making his way back towards the peloton, being off the front there for the majority of the day. That's Frank Sutton from the Chester's racing team.
Yes, he's collected some points. You can see him hydrating here. Back at the front of the race again, you can see a bit of feeding going on from the team vans. Paul Clark helping out this year with the Kia Motors Ascot Park squad. Man, he's a veteran of this race. Been here, done that.
And that counts for a lot, Doug, doesn't it? The support behind the scenes for these teams, and that makes a huge difference. The preparation. They would have had a lot of discussions, looked at the weather forecast, looked at the profile of the race, and of course who they're up against as well. But these three at the moment are united as a threesome here. They know it's going to make the difference if they're going to hold off the challenge here of the main peloton.
The main peloton isn't panicking. You can see there's a bit of structure there. Jason Allen from the Mike Greer team. Jason is a veteran of this race. I think he's 15th edition or 16th edition. Been there, done that. You can see things are starting to split up though. These conditions are taking their toll. This is going to be a reoccurring theme, I would think, Julian.
Absolutely. We saw Nick Miller there, the man that's been up getting a lot of the points in the King of the Mountains, and hopefully should have done himself enough there to secure that for the end of the day one here. So he's decided it's time to head back into the peloton, refuel and look after himself going into the next day. The faces are quite deceiving here as they make their way through some very strong winds, and there's the signage giving a clear indication of the challenge that's going on. And here it is, here as the peloton now starts to splinter, including the yellow jersey of the tour, Joe Cooper.
Julian, this is a critical moment in the stage. You can see these guys really struggling to hang on to their bikes, literally. And it is a crosswind which is ferocious. There's about 15 guys in this group, and they're doing everything they can to stay on the road.
Let's not forget we started with 84 riders, and it's the likes of Michael Vink here, and the man in the dark black sort of colours that is trying to lead the group through, but he's not getting a lot of reaction from the chasing group as our two leaders now start to approach Mosburn with some 30 kilometres to go.
Yeah, the outskirts of Mosburn of treacherous for wind. It funnels in, of course, there's a whole lot of windmills on a hill out there, Julian. That's why they put them there, because there's a continual blast of wind. These guys have settled into a nice rhythm though. Mark Ryan just looks so composed on a bike, doesn't he?
They're looking very composed, but let's not forget that they are averaging only around 20 kilometres an hour, and they've been doing that now for the last 100 kilometres. That's all about to change, because traditionally, as we're about to see here, these guys will pick up the pace. A side tail wind will be getting up in excess of 60 to 70 kilometres here, which could have some serious reactions to the bodies as we move into the final few K.
There's another preem coming out of Mossman. These guys will be relishing this. They also realise there is not far to go, and it is very, very hard, Julian, to make up a big time gap when you're chasing a group of riders. These guys are going to run along, like you say, in excess of 60 kilometres an hour. That means the chasing group have to go even faster. So it's going to be an exciting time for these guys on the road.
We saw in that shot there that the riders were in their top gears. 1 minute 54, the time continues to drop, but as we said, 60k an hour, there's going to be after huge effort from the chasing bunch, but the big gears now are being wound up by two men that know how to hold off a peloton. So here is the remnants of the chase group making that right-handed turn into Mosburn. The yellow jersey there, Doug, but I don't see any of the Avanti team.
Yeah, Joe Cooper's been isolated here, Julian. No other Avanti teammates. It is going to be really interesting to see what Joe Cooper's strategy is now. He's going to seriously have to batten down the hatches. This is make or break for his tour leader jersey and his aspirations for the overall right on first on day one.
I see Anthony Chapman there in the black colours, and of course Matt Zenovich just heading over in those limey green colours with one of his teammates from the Champion System Team Dallas.
Yep, the Barry Stewart Builders boys are on the front and they're driving this peloton along, the L&M Creations team, but here we are back at the front of the race, and man, these guys are blasting along. This is a really quick bit of road, a tailwind. It's predominantly and historically been a fast part of the race.
This stretch of road is often seen where the chasing peloton makes the gap across the leading group, but at this point in time there's not a lot of reaction by a few of the riders as Vink continues to try and stir things up. He was the initiator back in the main peloton some 20 kilometres back. He's taken this group with him, but they're not at the moment as a united group.
Yeah, you can see here the front group again with Roman Van Uden and Mark Ryan. They're just concentrating on going as quickly as they possibly can. These blokes have been professional bike riders for a long time, and you can just see here the cohesion between the two. They are seriously moving, Julian.
This has been an enormous day for these two riders. Let's not forget that they started off the things right from the get-go here with some 5 riders. As we look back to what's happening in the chasing group, it's been split up over 2 or 3 bunches, and this looks like a group of 4 now that are trying to get themselves across to try and potentially get themselves up onto the stage victory.
This is just exceptional on day one of a stage race like this, Julian. It's like trying to strike a knockout blow in round 1 of a 15-round match, and these guys realise that this is going on, and there's some serious panic going on in the chasing groups.
And it's Michael Vink that we see there, the man in the dark black colours, and he's joined by one of the American riders this year, Ascot, a man that's of course won the American Championships in 2014 and is the current Criterium champion, and he's not too bad at the cyclocross either, Doug, so he's a man who's an all-rounder, and he has decided to go with the man Vink.
The Kia Motors guys have come into this race with a clear motive, and their motive is to try and win it. They're coming out on day one. They've set a rider out the front in Mark Ryan. They're blowing the rest of the chasing group to bits. You've got to hand it to the boys at Kia Motors Ascot Park. They've just had a sensational strategy here.
Multiple national champion Michael Vink from the Mike Greer Homes team continues to power into it, but they are riding for 3rd place at this point in time, but those other 2 riders are certainly setting sail and looking like a serious win into the stage. But don't count out Vink. This is a man who could still take top honours in this tour.
Here we are just encountering the outskirts of Lumsden. These guys will be starting to jockey for position, but I've got to say they're driving it all the way to the line. This has seriously been a move right from the get-go, as you said, Julian. These guys have been out here all day. They've been driving it along. They'll be getting weary. This finish cannot come soon enough.
With over just 1,000 metres to go with the traditional finish into Lumsden, we were seeing some huge big bunch sprints. Today it is down to 2 riders that rolled the dice from the get-go, who are going to try and take their chance to take out the day 1 stage here of this SBS Bank Tour of Southland.
You know, we've not seen a first day like this, Julian, in a long, long time, and this race has just blown apart. It really is going to make it for an exciting race as the week wears on. These two guys have demonstrated their intentions right from the get-go, and Mark Ryan, you can see here, coming through again for the Kia Motors Ascot Park team. He is going all the way here and trying to maximise the time gain on Joe Cooper from the Avanti Racing team, who was way back in the peloton.
Let's not forget these two riders were involved in the team time trial yesterday in the top three. They are only 5 and 8 seconds respectively off the overall yellow jersey here. With time bonuses available and the gap back to Joe Cooper, these guys know not only are they vying for a stage victory here on day one, but also the coveted yellow jersey.
You can see Mark Ryan, he's a very, very experienced bike rider, very strong bike rider, but Roman van Uden has been in his slipstream here for the last sort of 500 or 600 metres, and I think Roman van Uden might be thinking about coming across and trying to win this stage here from Mark Ryan from the Kia Motors Ascot Park squad.
It looks like we're on the velodrome here with a bit of sprinting about to happen here as they followed the wheels. Ryan is being forced to lead out. With all their experience, these two have got to be pretty wary after a long day on the bike as they approach the last few hundred metres, and it's the power net man that decides to power off the front. Van Uden, a former winner of the green jersey, has got himself clear of the Olympian and is going to clear out to take a few more extra seconds, and that should put him into the yellow jersey here on day one of this SBS Bank Tour of Southland. Eric Marcotte of the United States will secure third place from Michael Vink here on day one of the tour. So Roman van Uden goes into the lead with a 9-second advantage over the Olympian Ryan, with Marcotte 1 minute 42 down from Michael Vink's 1:54, and Cooper, the former yellow leader, at 1:57. In the Harcourt Sprint Ace, Van Uden also gets himself the green jersey with 24 points from Joe Chapman's 21. The Jesco Hydraulics King of the Mountains sees Nick Miller move in with 23 points over Chapman and Sutton. While the Henderson Construction under 23 sees Ryan Christensen move into the lead with a 17-second advantage over Banza, and Brent Allnut holds on to the silver jersey of the Stonewood Homes silver jersey category. While the Wednesday Cycles team classification sees a big move from Kia Motors Ascot Park Hotel, 59 seconds over PowerNet, and in the third spot is Barry Stewart Builders.
These conditions are perfect for me, and our whole team rode really well today. Like, strong. When I seen them all come in after, they're all there. So it's going to be a good week for us, I think, and it's good to put Avanti on the back foot on the first day. Really,
that was a big day. That's up there with probably top 5 biggest days on the bike. Yeah. We were doing 20k an hour for a long time. I think it was like 100k of headwind today. It was just horrible, absolutely horrible.
Follow the 2015 SBS Bank Tour of Southland all week with full results, news updates, photo galleries and video coverage every day at tourofsouthland.com.